got it. So I'll just have to see. It's saying it's live streaming, but for some reason it's not coming through. In any case, it should come through. There's no reason. It's sending data. Lovely technology. But you can go across to my Facebook channel, either Easy Track Property Group or Gladfish Property or else Bread Allegra Wood. Either of those three are live and they're working. So yeah, you can hear them in the background going off with the Prime Minister's questions. So we're going to listen live, and then basically what I'll do is I'll give my commentary, so we'll come in and out of that. But and obviously a property investor's perspective, because at the end of that, that's the only thing we really care about. So yeah, so we'll probably, I mean, he's due to come on in about 9 minutes time, you know, and it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. My personal take on this is that I actually think he's going to, oh, now it's come back as an error has occurred. So let me just try and see if I can't get this on again. Just one sec, guys. Yeah, so it says it's online now. Yeah, that's no good. Yeah, look, guys, I think it might be better to jump across onto the Facebook channel or either one, Gladfish Property, Easy Track Property, or Bread Allegra Wood, because it's the spinning wheel of death I've got on this one on my YouTube channel for some reason. I'm not sure, but anyway, let's get on with that, and we'll see. Hopefully the stream comes up on there, but you can never count and tell. I mean, it says it's online here, so and it appears to be. Just don't know what's going on with it and why it's not showing through. Anyway, so interesting this whole thing, because look, what do I expect for tonight? Realistically, I think my prediction is this. I don't think he's going to go hard at the big tax increases and things like that. On the 23rd, we've got a day where I think things will happen. And I think potentially that's where we're going to see major tax change. I think he will announce some today, but maybe not give huge detail. I think the other side of it is that's going to be an interesting one for all of us is actually, you know, I think he's going to play it safe. He's really got to stimulate still. He can't start raising taxes and effectively austerity. You know, the thing they've got to realise, and I think he will. He's smart enough, and they're smart enough to know. I think now. I think they've been doing it long enough. Guys, there is another live channel there, so it looks like there's a live channel working. So that's good. So it looks like we're on with that. So just go to the main YouTube, Brett's Property Rants, and you'll see the one that says live now there. There's actually two streams for some reason. It's created two streams. But anyway, back to it. Yeah. So I think this one, we're not going to see a huge amounts of things. Yeah. I think what we're going to see is a good balance, really positive and really stimulating. Stimulating, that sounds like a great word. But, you know, lots of stimulus. I think we still need this. We're still in the middle of coronavirus. We've had the second, you know, bout, and now potentially there could be a third bout that's being talked about in Europe. I think we might avoid it in the UK because of the level of vaccines we've got out. So that's great. Hey, Elise. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Ryan. And hey, Sam. Good to have you guys join us. And yeah, any questions you've got, I'll try and get him in there. Depends how fast Rishi talks, but I imagine he'll fire all sorts of stuff and I'll give the commentary, and then whatever questions you've got, we'll answer them at the end after that. So that's good. But yeah, look, I'm actually quite positive about this. I think, you know, realistically, I think we're going to see lots of job support. I think we've already seen, I mean, if this was a ship, it would be at the bottom of the ocean. There's so many leaks at the moment because we've already seen furlough come back, you know, until September. We've already seen, you know, a number of different initiatives. Universal credit, the £20 extra per week is continuing. So all this sort of stuff, which is actually good news. It's all good news. And I'd be disappointed if he started to go, this is how we're going to pay for it, because we're not through it yet. And the last thing you want to do is stifle that growth. You know, and one thing I always talk about is the unemployment. Right now, 5.1%, which isn't that high, not what you would expect it. So that's good news. You know, stamp duty extension, I mean, that's already been leaked pretty much. So we'll see if it comes through with that. 5% deposits, first-time buyers, already been leaked, you know. So corporation tax, that hasn't been. We'll see what happens there, but they're talking about maybe 19 to 23. We'll see about that. And capital gains tax, they've been pretty tight-lipped about that, but they're thinking about bringing, from what's been leaked, about bringing it in line with income tax, which would be nothing for 12.5 and then 20, 40, etc. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, what we'll do now is we'll join the live feed. We've got about 5 minutes left. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. So we've got this page, and then basically, I mean, we'll see what they're saying.
He's completely right.
These are the Prime Minister's questions. So we'll be up and running in about 5 minutes. But it's interesting. I was listening to this. it's amazing how the budget's coming up and all they were talking about was Yemen, which I thought was quite interesting. But maybe it's after, or maybe next time I'll talk about the budget and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's been interesting to see how that goes. You know, I don't really sit there and get off on watching Parliament. I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't really do much for me. But this will be interesting because, you know, lots of people have been calling this the most influential budget in a generation. And I actually believe that. This is the first time that we've been through such a massive change and drop, you know, across the world. And actually we've been able to avoid a full-blown recession because we've pumped so much stimulus in. And so that's actually a good thing, I think, you know, and I think actually it's been a different approach. Now, will there be the sting in the tail? We've been talking about this for a long time. I think there will be a sting in the tail. I think it'll be inflation, but I think the inflation won't be that bad because what we've seen is returns drop over a long, long period of time. And I think, you know, the interesting thing is, and this is one of the biggest things with debt, okay? If we look at debt servicing costs, they're at a record low, you know, since, you know, really since, well, if you look at 1940, they've been quite low, you know, 15% down. And now look how low they are. You know, they're at the lowest they've ever been since the 1700s. And there's nothing that looks like they're going to return back to where they were. I mean, you imagine if your debt servicing costs were 60, 70%, 50%, you know, you can't take on a lot of debt in that phase. So I think because of this, and forget about the debt figure, because we can look at how much the debt is, but the reality is, you know, and if we look at the public sector spending, you know, 8.8 billion just in January is what we borrowed, you know, which is pretty full on, you know. So the thing I think with this borrowing and debt is, and there's two words in that statement that I've highlighted, which is basically debt interest spending could create some significant feedback loops, yeah? Which means if you borrow a lot, what's the impact of that? And I think that could be the key. You know, what are this? It could be inflation, could be deflation, could be stagflation, you know, who knows? I don't think it will be. I think actually we could be seeing a recovery. We could have actually stimulated our way out of it. Now, is that going to cause the issues with long-term returns? That I do think could be a problem, yeah? So, you know, this is where I think it is. But, you know, it's interesting because one of the things I thought was interesting was corporation tax they're talking about going up from 19% potentially to 23%. For every 1 percentage point, that's £3 billion. Now, I sort of think, well, actually, that's not a lot of money. But interestingly, VAT, national insurance, which basically it's the, I guess, the big three you talk about it, which is, will I have more, you know, we'll have to pay more tax. Well, they're saying they won't raise income tax, national insurance, and VAT, which accounts for 50% of the income, you know, which is quite interesting. So yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. You know, I reckon it's going to be a bit of a, you know, almost a not as good a giveaway as last year's budget. Okay, I think that was because if you think, remember, it was just before COVID, so it was all very positive, stimulus, fantastic. I think it's going to be a bit more measured. But I do think it's not going to be, you know, draconian austerity. I think, you know, we had a lost decade, and make no mistake about it, we had a lost decade in the, you know, the last administration and what they did. So I don't think that's going to necessarily happen and continue like it did. So look, we'll see what happens today. You know, we're about to, you know, happen. So we'll see where we're at. So I'm going to head across I'll get you across onto the main feed, this is the BBC feed, which is so you can read through what they're saying while I'm talking about it. And let's see what they're saying.
Can I encourage him, therefore, to look at the Humber report closely and also favourably, as it contains sites in Hull, Goole,
so these are still the Prime Minister's questions, I think.
Really important for this region.
And what we're listening to is not actually the BBC website, if you want to go to it, but it's actually the Prime Minister's, it's the parliament.tv. So, look, you know, it's a bit delayed, but not really. And the reality is the budget, the BBC is going to be more delayed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HS2 reduces journey times from Manchester
HS2, wow. So HS2 is a great project. The problem is it's so much money going into one project. Once it's done, fantastic. But the problem is getting it there, and what are the opportunity costs? Because you've literally got along the train line, fantastic. But everywhere else, what's missing out? And I think that's the real problem. But yeah.
Mr. Speaker, the answer to that is, as anybody knows who gets a project done their home or wherever.
It's obviously the costs have gone ridiculously overrun on HS2, which is a real problem. But yeah, so all right, we're now 8:30. Now they can keep Prime Minister's questions going on, but we'll see. So we may find, because there's a Prime Minister question, and then we'll get into the budget with Rishi. So he hasn't arrived yet. Still more questions coming. So yeah, but look, I'm actually pretty optimistic about this. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount in there that we're going to be going, oh my goodness, life's going to change. We're going to pay back all this debt. So it'll be interesting. Sam, I'll get to your question after. 5% deposit mortgages, I love them, to be fair. I don't think the interest rates are going to be too much higher. They will be a little bit because of the risk profile, but yeah. But we'll come to those later. Yeah.
Social enterprise.
Yeah, so, but I saw 450 billion in the economy this year. Yeah, I mean, what's the impact of that? I think the important thing for me about debt is it's not so much the debt that is the worry. Okay, all countries now are going to debt. It's the repayment of the debt that is the real concern. Okay, and I think that's the thing we've got to look at. And with borrowing costs so low, that's actually, it's not as big a worry as what a lot of people are making out and would think. I'd much rather have the government do what they're doing, which is stimulating, than not doing it at all. Now, it looks like he's coming up onto the stage, and we might hear from him very quickly. So you're going to be listening to Parliament TV, but you're actually going to be watching the BBC, because they'll give their commentary and the summary, and I'll probably miss some stuff as I'm talking and things like that, but you'll be able to read it online. So good. Oh, maybe they're waiting for... No, it is 12 past 12:30. It's not just hitting the ground. Yeah, Sam. So Sam just right. I love this comment. It's not jumping out of the plane that's concerned. It's hitting the ground. Actually, look at that there. So I'll have to put my comments up there. It's hitting the ground. I don't think we're going to hit the ground in the way some people will make out and think that we do. And I think that's... And look, there's a lot of arguments about that. Now, is this house suspended for 3 minutes? Okay, so they've suspended the house for 3 minutes, probably to go to a toilet break or something, or get ready with his, folders and budgets and whatever that dude that bangs his little thingamajig for. I should know the history of the UK Parliament better than that, shouldn't I? But yeah, look, I think, budget key points so far, quick recap. Oh, so they've already got this, have they? Wait there. Oh, no. So this is the leaky boat. We already know what's coming. It's terrible. Well, it's probably good, actually. And in fact, if you're going to do it, you might as well do it this way. Leak a few things so people get used to it, especially the good news, so the anticipation is there. Maybe a few bad things, but don't give too much detail. Just give the headline. So I think, that will be an interesting one. But yeah, so zero runny inflation is coming if it's not already here. So look, and that is one of the potential issues that we face, is obviously inflation. Inflation's an interesting one because it does drive house prices up. It does drive our debt, our effective cost of debt, not a cost of debt down, but it drives the debt that we have, drives down through inflation. So, so it's good from that perspective as long as you can afford it. And I think that's one of the keys is you have to be able to afford it. If you can't afford it, then that is a problem. So yeah, as you can see there, they're getting ready for the guys to walk along. Look, they've even got the train lines along there, so he doesn't step out of line or whatever. Or maybe that's the safe distancing stuff. They've got to stay on either side of the line. But anyway, we'll rejoin them very soon. But yeah, I think inflation could be a real issue, and I think inflation will come back. But I'm not as concerned about inflation. The reason I'm not as concerned about inflation is because if you look at interest rates over the long term, the 5 and 10 year rates are actually not jumping up too bad, which, normally if you have lots of inflation, you're probably going to get the interest rates back. So it looks like they're back. Yeah, we'll watch. Yeah, all right, we don't really need to watch this, do we? This is all quite boring.
And of course,
but yeah.
Online.
Come on, let's get in.
I also remind honourable members that interventions are not taken during the Chancellor's statement, nor during the replies.
These are the most rowdy bunch. In fact, they're not the most rowdy bunch of politicians, but it's amazing how they do this and how they yell out and shout over people and laugh at people. You know, you'd think there'd be a bit more respect, but I mean, that's part of the history, I think, that dates back hundreds of years. So, yeah. So good. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, so that's, you know, comment, tax now or wait. And I think that is the real issue. I think he will wait a little bit. Yeah? So here we go. Let's get started.
Deputy Speaker,
And there he is there.
a year ago, in my first budget, I announced our initial response to coronavirus.
All right.
What was originally thought to be a temporary disruption to our way of life has fundamentally altered it. People are still being told to stay in their homes. Businesses have been ordered to close. Thousands of people are in hospital. Much has changed, but one thing has stayed the same. I said I would do whatever it takes.
Yep.
I have done, and I will do so.
And I think he has. I'm pretty impressed with him on that.
We have announced over £280 billion of support, protecting jobs, keeping businesses afloat, helping families get by.
And good on him for that, because I think the alternative was something that we didn't want to be experiencing.
Our economy has been acute.
Yeah.
Since March, over 700,000 people have lost their jobs.
But
Our
nowhere
economy
near as much
has
as would
shrunk
have,
by
I think.
10%, the largest fall in over 300 years. Our borrowing is the highest it has been outside of wartime.
Yep.
It's going to take this country and the whole world a long time to recover.
I love it, Sam. You're right. He wants his job. He may well do it. He may well get it. You know?
But we will recover.
Yeah. And we will, and I think we are recovering.
With a three-part plan to protect the jobs and livelihoods of the
Said for a while, jobs are the key here.
First,
imagine if Corbyn was in charge.
Whatever it takes to support the British people and businesses.
And I do love that, whatever it takes, too. I think that was the right approach.
Once we are on the way to recovery, we will need to begin fixing the public finances. And I want to be honest today about our plans to do that.
Good.
And third, in today's budget, we begin the work of building our future economy.
Building back better, as they've been saying for a while, which I think is a good thing, because, you know, we've had an opportunity with Brexit. We need to take it.
Our response to coronavirus is working.
Yep.
The Prime Minister last week set out our cautious but irreversible roadmap to ease restrictions whilst protecting the British people.
Yeah.
The NHS, deserving of immense praise, has had extraordinary success in vaccinating more than 20 million people across the United Kingdom.
And that's going to potentially stop our third wave not happening, which is great.
One of the most comprehensive and generous in the world. This means the Office for Budget Responsibility are now forecasting, in their words, a swifter and more sustained recovery than they expected in November.
Yep.
The OBR now expect the economy to return to its pre-COVID level by the middle of next year, 6 months earlier than previously thought.
Yeah.
That means growth is faster, unemployment lower.
And that's been played out in places like Singapore and China and places that have overcome it, so it's been quite good.
But while our prospects are now stronger, coronavirus has done and is still doing profound damage.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
And today's forecasts make clear repairing the long-term damage will take time. The OBR still expect that in 5 years' time, because of coronavirus, our economy will be 3% smaller than it would have been.
It's a big hit, 3%.
Before I share the detail of the OBR's forecast, let me thank Richard Hughes and his team for their work.
The OBR are a separate organisation, effectively, or part of government, but yeah.
By 7.3% in 2022, then 1.7, 1.6, and 1.7% in the last 3 years.
So you think most modern economies go for 2%, so that's quite good.
Our interventions to support jobs have worked. In July last year, they expected unemployment to peak at 11.9%.
Yeah.
Today, Because of our interventions, they forecast a much lower peak, 6.5%.
6.5. So that's only
That
1.4 more,
1.8
which is
million
good.
Fewer people.
Yeah, that's
are
huge.
expected
I mean,
to
that's a
be
huge
out of
accomplishment
work
here. Make no
than
mistake.
previously thought.
You know, and I don't think too many
But
people could have
every
done that.
job lost
You know,
is
so
a
yeah.
tragedy, which is why protecting, creating, and supporting jobs remains my highest priority.
And I've been saying this for a long time. You know, the jobs,
So,
watch the
Madam
jobs, the
Deputy Speaker,
unemployment,
let me
watch
turn
the
straight
redundancies.
away
And they
to
haven't
the
jumped
first
up.
part of this budget's plan.
Okay,
To
good.
protect the jobs and livelihoods of the British people through the remaining phase of this crisis. First, the furlough scheme will be extended until the end of September.
Yeah.
For employees,
So this is
there will
awesome.
be no change to the terms. They will continue to receive 80% of their salary for hours not worked until the scheme ends.
Wow, that's better than we
Businesses
expected.
reopen,
We expected a
will
taper to
offset
70
the
and
cost
60.
alongside the taxpayer to the cost of paying their employees. Nothing will change until July, when
Wait
we
there.
will ask for a small contribution of just 10%.
Okay, so they are tapering it.
In August.
So it was 80%, then it goes to in July, August,
The
it
government
goes,
is proud.
August,
of the
September,
furlough,
it'll be
one
60.
of the
Is
most
it?
generous schemes in the world,
No?
effectively protecting millions of people's jobs and incomes.
Yeah, wow.
Second, support for the self-employed will also continue until September, with a fourth grant covering the period February to April, and a fifth and final grant from May onwards. The fourth grant will provide 3 months of support at 80% of average trading profits.
Gotcha.
For the
Okay.
fifth grant, people will continue to receive grants worth 3 months of average profits, with the system open for claims from
Gotcha.
late July.
Yep. So that's quite good
As
for
the
self-employed
economy
too.
reopens over the summer,
They were
it is
left out of the
best
initial
to target
phase,
our support
but no, good.
towards those most affected by the pandemic. So people whose turnover has fallen by 30% or more will continue to receive the full 80% grant.
Oh, wow.
People whose turnover has fallen by less than 30% will therefore have less need of taxpayer support.
Good.
And will receive
Been talking about this for a while,
30%
tapering stuff, you know,
I can
and
also announce a
targeting the
major
relief,
improvement
which is
in
good.
access to the self-employed scheme.
Yeah.
When the scheme was launched, the newly self-employed couldn't qualify because they hadn't all filed the 1920 tax return. But as the tax return deadline has now passed,
Yep.
I can announce today that provided they filed a tax return by midnight last night, over 600,000 more people, many of whom became self-employed last year, can now claim the fourth and fifth grants.
Gotcha. Perfect. So that's good.
Over the
Yeah.
course of this crisis, we will have spent £33 billion supporting the self-employed.
Yeah. Wow.
One
So
of the
that's
most
good news for
generous
self-employed
programs
people.
for self-employed people anywhere
yeah.
in the world.
Because they were left out of the
Third,
first phase.
We're also
so, yeah.
extending our support for the lowest paid and most vulnerable. To support low-income households, the universal credit uplift
Yep.
of £20 a week will continue for a further 6 months, well beyond the end of this national lockdown.
Yeah.
We'll provide
So that's
working
good.
tax credit.
That's also good for
with
property
equivalent
investors, and the reason is
for the
because
next
if
6 months.
tenants can afford
Because
to
of the
pay
way
their
the
rent,
tax system works
then obviously
operationally,
the landlord
we
gets
need
paid,
to do
and I
so
think that's
with a
fundamental and
draft
important.
payment
So that's
of
good.
£500.
Okay.
And over the course of this year, as the economy begins to recover,
Oh, wait there.
we are shifting our resources and focus
Yeah. Wow.
towards getting people into decent,
So it looks
well-paid
like
jobs. We
the BBC's
reaffirm
lagging
our
behind a bit on
commitment
their stuff.
to end low pay,
Um,
increasing the national living wage to £8.91 from April, an annual pay rise of almost £350 for someone working full-time on the national living wage. And my
Yeah.
right honourable friends, the Education Secretary and the Work and Pension Secretary are taking action to give people the skills they need to get jobs or get better jobs.
Yeah.
The Restart Programme, supporting over 1 million long-term unemployed people. The number of work coaches.
it's interesting with young people are biggest affected by this by far. You know, I think it was 16 to 24%
The
unemployment,
pioneers
which is
lifetime
huge.
skills guarantee.
So anything to get them back
Every
into
adult opportunity for a
work
fully
is
funded
good
level 3
news.
qualification.
You know,
And we want businesses to hire new apprentices, so we're paying them more to do it. Today, I am doubling the incentive payments we give businesses to £3,000. That's for all new apprentice hires of any age.
I thought it was already
Alongside
3,000.
investing £126 million of new money to triple the number of traineeships, we're taking what works to get people into jobs and
That's
making it better.
Yeah.
Madam Deputy Speaker, one of the hidden tragedies of lockdown has been the increase in domestic abuse.
Yeah.
So I'm announcing today an extra £19 million on top of the £125 million we announced at the spending review for domestic violence programs to reduce the risk of reoffending and to pilot.
So one of the challenges with this whole not being able to evict people as a property investor is if you have domestic violence, the current clauses aren't suitable for purpose. You know, it's unfortunate.
£10 million to support veterans with mental health needs.
Yeah.
And on current plans, the funding to support survivors of the thalidomide scandal runs out in 2023.
Oh, wow, okay.
They deserve better than to have constant uncertainty about the future costs.
So I think phase one so far for property investors has been really good. What it means is, you know, by stimulating all of the economy and keeping those jobs, that's great for property prices. That's great for rental, for renters being able to afford. So that's good news, you know. So I think actually, you know, that's pretty good news so far. You know, nothing untoward, but he hasn't got to the taxes yet. So.
Incomes, the lowest paid and most vulnerable. This budget also protects businesses.
Okay, so this will be interesting.
Providing businesses with direct cash grants through the recent restrictions.
I wish I could get some.
These grants come to an end in March. I can announce today that we will provide a new restart grant in April to help businesses reopen and get going again. Non-essential retail businesses will open first, so they will receive grants of up to £6,000 per premises. Hospitality and leisure businesses, including personal care and gyms, will open later or be more impacted by restrictions when they do, so we'll give them grants of up to £18,000.
So this is the hospitality sector and the entertainment sector, which has been massively hit by this. You know, they've borne the brunt of it, not discounting anyone else's side of things. You know,
£25 billion.
Yeah.
And I pay tribute to my right honourable friend,
But
member for
I have to say, I think everyone's looking forward to getting their hair cut and getting back to the pubs. You know, it's something that everybody talks about, and I think that will actually naturally help the mental health issues that are really coming part of it. So arts and culture, yeah, because they've been hit massively. I mean, if you think about it, if you do live entertainment, you've been stopped dead, not being able to do anything. So yeah, so this is not really going to affect property investors, but obviously, if everyone's happier, then they're likely to pay their rent, which is good for us. Sam did his own haircut. Yeah. Mate, I notice you haven't got a profile photo on your YouTube.
We're introducing
But yeah.
recovery loan scheme to take their place.
Okay.
Businesses of any size can apply for loans from £25,000 up to £10 million through to the end of this year. And the government will provide a guarantee to lenders of 80%.
This is good news. Wow. 80% guarantee, yeah.
Provided an unprecedented 100%.
So you've still got to give 20% of the got haircut coming.
In the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. A tax cut worth £10 billion.
Yep.
This year, we'll continue with the 100% business rates holiday for the first 3 months of the year.
Okay.
In other words, through to the end of June.
Gotcha.
For the remaining 9 months of the year, business rates will still be discounted by 2/3, up to a value.
Business rates is a real contentious issue and has been for years, and they haven't solved it. So hopefully, while this is happening, they go away and fix it up because it needs it.
For business. One of the hardest.
Yeah, zero running universal income is an interesting one. I'm swaying my opinion on that, and not that I don't agree with it. I think it's fantastic, but yeah, we'll come to that later. Yeah.
Our support. To protect those jobs, I can confirm that the 5% reduced rate of VAT will be extended for 6 months to the 30th of September.
Okay, good.
And even then, we won't go straight back to the 20% rate. We'll have an interim rate of 12.5% for another 6 months, not returning to the standard rate until April of next year.
Yeah.
In total, we're cutting VAT next year by almost £5 billion. Madam Deputy Speaker, the housing sector.
Hey, here we go.
500,000 jobs.
Yep.
The cut in stamp duty I announced last summer has helped hundreds of thousands of people buy a home and supported the economy.
And it has. It's been fantastic.
But due to the sheer volume of transactions we're seeing, many new purchases won't complete in time for the end of March. So I can announce today the £500,000 nil rate ban will not end on the 31st of March. It will end on the 30th of June.
Good.
Then, to smooth the transition back to normal,
here we go.
the nil rate band will be £250,000, double its standard level, until the end of September, and we will only return to the usual level of 100.
Okay, so that's good. That tapering, which gets us around the cliff edge. Yeah, I think that's great.
Even with the stamp duty cut, there is still a significant barrier to people getting on the housing ladder: the cost of a deposit.
Yeah.
So I'm announcing today a new policy.
I love
to
this.
Stand behind home buyers, a mortgage guarantee.
Yeah.
Lenders who provide mortgages to home buyers who can only afford a 5% deposit will benefit from a government guarantee on those mortgages.
Perfect.
And I'm pleased to say that several of the country's largest lenders, including Lloyds, NatWest, Santander, Barclays and HSBC, will be offering these 95% mortgages from next month.
Good.
And I know more, including Virgin Money,
Excellent.
will follow.
So this is awesome. You know, a vibrant market is what we need.
Can't afford a big deposit,
Yeah.
the chance to buy their own home.
Yeah.
As the Prime Minister
100%.
has said, we want to turn generation
Good one,
rent
Sam.
into generation buy.
Yeah.
So, Madam Deputy Speaker,
Good
the
one.
furlough extended to September. Self-employed grants extended to September. Universal.
One of the challenges with the furlough scheme in getting a mortgage is that a lot of lenders don't like that because they're concerned people won't be brought back. But I think this may change their view on it, which is good.
Struggling businesses, extra funds for culture, arts and sport, new loan schemes to finance businesses, kickstart, restart, a lifetime skills guarantee, business rates cut, VAT cut, stamp duty cut, and a new mortgage guarantee.
Sam, get in there, mate. I 100% agree. I think it's a great idea to get in and get on.
Livelihoods of the British people.
Yeah, it'll be 5% on residential properties, buying your own home.
Speaker, as you can see, we're going long, extending our support well beyond the end of the roadmap to accommodate even the most cautious view about the.
So far, all good news, which is what I expected to be a stimulus.
For the House,
so it looks like that's it.
Of our total fiscal response to coronavirus.
No new taxes, no. So that's great.
We are announcing an additional £65 billion of measures over this year and next to support the economy in response to coronavirus.
Good. Yeah.
Taking into account the significant support announced at the spending review, this means our total COVID support package this year and next is £352 billion.
Yeah, wow.
Once you include the measures announced at spring budget last year,
as I mentioned, don't be too worried about that.
Capital investment,
because the cost of borrowing is very small.
This government over this year and next amounts to £407 billion.
Yeah, wow.
Coronavirus has caused one of the largest, most comprehensive and sustained economic shocks this country has ever faced. and by any
I think the
objective
recovery loans will be
this
at a
government
standard
has
rate,
delivered
which will be your
one of
sort
the
of
largest,
anywhere from sort of 4 up to 8
comprehensive, sustained
type.
responses this country has
But it's good
ever
news,
seen.
you know? Yeah.
So, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're using the full measure of
Well,
our fiscal
that seems to be it
protect
with
the
the
jobs
news,
and
which is
of the British
pretty much,
But the damage
it's a
done by
giveaway.
coronavirus,
Oh no, here we go.
combined with a level of support unimaginable only 12 months ago,
This could be the kick in the tail.
challenges for our public finances.
Let's see how it goes.
The OBR's fiscal forecasts show that this year we have borrowed a record amount, £355 billion. That's 17% of our national income, the highest level of borrowing since World War II.
Yep.
Next year, as we continue our unprecedented response to this
The
crisis,
good thing about this,
borrowing is
good and bad,
forecast to be
in a war you destroy lots of capital infrastructure, so it has to be rebuilt. So there's a huge stimulus at the end.
an amount
So we haven't had to do that
has only
here,
one rival
which
in
is
recent
good
history
and bad.
this year. Without corrective action, borrowing would continue at very high levels, leaving underlying debt rising indefinitely.
Yep.
Instead, because of the steps I am taking today, borrowing falls to 4.5% of GDP in 22-23, 3.5% in 23-24, then 2.9 and 2.8% in the following 2 years. And while
Okay.
underlying debt rises from 88.8% of GDP this year to 93.8% next year, it then peaks at 97.1% in 23-24 before stabilising and
Okay.
falling slightly to 97% and 96.8% in the final.
And a lot of these
year
figures
forecast.
are,
Let me explain.
this is going to be, it'll be interesting. This is why I haven't been worried about the
amount
debt.
we borrowed is comparable only with the amount we borrowed during the 2 world wars.
Yeah.
It's going to be the work of many governments over many decades to pay it back.
We're not going to pay it back, guys. That's never the intention to pay it back. We don't need to, or they don't need to. We inflate it away, and actually, you're right, Zero Runner, you just said that. You know.
When crises come, we need to be able to act, and we need the fiscal freedom to act. A freedom.
And you know what? In 5 years' time, if we look back at this and we pulled it off, we haven't had a massive deflation, inflation. Actually, this will become the standard of how you deal with recessions going forward, I think, which will be interesting.
Conservative governments painstakingly rebuilt our fiscal resilience.
Yeah, sorry, I don't agree with that. I think austerity may have built the government, but it screwed every single person over. Certainly not, maybe not the wealthy, but certainly the poor. So
may not stay low forever.
yeah.
And just a 1 percentage point increase in both would now cost us over £25 billion. And as we have seen in the markets over the last few weeks, sovereign bond yields can rise sharply. This budget is not the time to set detailed fiscal rules with precise targets.
Rajesh, we can't write off the debt. That wouldn't work very well. But what we can do is we can actually inflate it away, which is what we do, these days.
By sustainable public finances and how I plan to achieve them. Our fiscal decisions are guided by 3 principles.
Okay, this could be the sting in the tail.
While it is right to help people and businesses through an acute crisis like this one, in normal times, the state should not be borrowing to pay for everyday public spending. Second, over the medium term,
Agree with that, yeah.
we cannot allow our debt to keep rising. And given how high our debt now is, we need to pay close attention to its affordability.
That's what I've been saying,
It is
affordability.
sensible to take advantage of lower interest rates to invest in capital projects
Yep.
that can drive our future growth. So the question is, how we achieve that, how we balance the extraordinary support we're providing to the economy right now with the need to begin the work of fixing our public finances. I have and always will be honest with the country about the challenges we face. So I'm announcing today 2 measures to begin that work.
Okay.
Let me take each in turn. Madam Deputy Speaker,
Why did he pause?
To coronavirus has been fair, with the poorest households benefiting the most.
Yeah, build some hyperloops, I agree with that.
And our approach to fixing the public finances will be fair too, asking more of those people and businesses who can afford to contribute and protect.
Be interesting to see if we get the Amazon tax, which is the online retailers tax, which I agree with.
Going to raise the rates of income tax, national insurance, or VAT.
So they've kept their manifesto promise.
Our first step is to freeze personal tax thresholds.
Yeah. So effectively, that is raising the tax anyway.
Income tax, personal
so 12,500 this year,
making it the most generous of any G20 country. We will, of course, deliver our promise to increase it again next year to £12,570. But we will then keep it at this more generous level until April 2026. The higher rate threshold will similarly be increased next year to £50,000, 270, and will then also remain at that level for the same period.
Okay.
Nobody's take-home pay will be less than it is now as a result of this policy.
Okay.
But I want to be clear with all members.
They were going to do something, so this isn't too bad.
Incremental benefit
so far.
Created had thresholds continued to increase with inflation. We are not hiding it.
Yeah.
I am here explaining it to the House, and it is in the budget document in black and white.
So that's not so bad because it actually is. It affects everyone. To be fair.
And I will also maintain at their current levels until April 2026 the inheritance tax thresholds, the pensions lifetime allowance, the annual exempt amount in capital gains tax, and for 2 years from April 2022, the VAT registration threshold, which at £85,000 will remain more than twice as generous as the EU and OECD averages. We'll also tackle fraud in our COVID.
It's going to be interesting to see. Oh, now this is interesting, the fraud bit.
New HMRC task force of around 1,000 investigators, as well as new measures and new investment in HMRC to clamp down on tax avoidance and evasion.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because there is definitely a lot of fraud that has happened. It was too easy,
The government is providing businesses with over £100 billion of support to get through this pandemic. So it is fair and necessary to ask them to contribute to our recovery. So the second step I am taking today is that in 2023, the rate of corporation tax paid on company profits will increase to 25%.
That's
Even
bigger.
After this change, the United Kingdom will still have the lowest corporation tax rate
of the G7s. Yeah.
Lower than the United States, Canada, Italy, Japan, Germany, and France.
That's
introducing some crucial.
We were talking about dropping it to 16% to attract people.
Rate won't take effect until April 2023, well after the point when the OBR expect the economy to have recovered. And even then, because corporation tax is only charged on company profits. Any struggling business will, by definition, be unaffected. Second, I'm protecting small businesses.
It is a big increase.
£50,000 or less by creating a small profits rate, maintained at the current rate of 19%. This means around 70% of companies, 1.4 million businesses, will be completely unaffected
by it. That's good, actually. That's quite good.
We will introduce a taper above 50,000 so that only businesses with profits of £250,000 or greater will be taxed at the full 25% rate. That means only 10% of companies will pay the full higher.
It's amazing to think that 70% of people don't earn over 50,000 profit. Yeah, small businesses. You know, that's not a lot. So yeah.
And only in 2 years.
And really, over 250,000 is 10%. So 90% aren't there.
For business, certainty matters.
Yeah. And to be fair,
2 years,
you know, oh, here we go.
I'm also making the tax treatment of losses significantly more generous by allowing businesses to carry back losses of up to £2 million for 3 years, providing a significant cash flow benefit. This means companies can now claim additional tax refunds of up to $700.
So that means if you make a huge profit 1 year and not the next year, that you can actually, make a loss that year and then a profit, you can carry that loss back. So that's quite good. Yeah.
So we will review the surcharge to make sure the combined rate of tax on the UK banking sector doesn't increase significantly from its current level, and to make sure this important industry remains internationally competitive.
So it's a taper between, so Rajesh, it's the taper between 50,000 to 150,000. So it'll go from whatever, he hasn't announced what it is. So
I recognise they might not be popular, but they are honest. And let's consider the alternatives. The first is to do nothing, to leave our deficit problem untreated.
As I predicted, not much in there really. I mean, the corporation tax is a big hit, but it has been put back, which is quite good. And really, that affects people who are making profits, you know, and large profits, 250,000. So
would be to try and find all the savings we need from public spending. But when we said at the last election that we were the party of public services, people believed us, and they were right.
It's good to see they haven't jumped into austerity. I think that is one of the key points about this government now, and I'm not talking about the Conservative, I'm talking about Boris and Rishi. They haven't gone back to austerity. You know, let's pay down the debt. That was the worst mistake that was made. You know, we lost a decade, certainly with house prices. So all round, it's pretty good, you know.
With our duty.
But yeah, zero only better to hold on to assets, debt rather than cash savings. 100% right now. You're just not making anything. You know, so I think but look, so far, you know, it's what I expected. Corporation tax, actually, I'm not too worried about that. But so far, I haven't seen any capital gains tax increases, which is good.
Pro-business tax regime. But we need to do even more to encourage businesses to invest right now. Business investment creates jobs, lifts growth, spurs innovation, and drives productivity.
Sam, I was going to say, it depends on who you classify as middle-income earners. Yeah. Look, actually, the poor is going to be tough for us and most hit. The young are going to be hit the hardest. So that's where stimulation. Yeah, well, Amazon, he hasn't mentioned anything about Amazon, has he? You know, but maybe.
So today, I can announce
Here we go.
the super deduction. For the next 2 years, when companies invest, they can reduce their tax bill, not just by a proportion of the cost of that investment as they do now, or even by 100% of their cost, the so-called full expensing that some have called for.
You're right, G. I shouldn't mention it. But this is quite good. Australia did this in the last recession, and it stimulated massively. It was a really good thing.
Under the existing rules, a construction firm buying £10 million of new equipment could reduce their taxable income in the year they invest by just £2.6 million. With the super deduction, they can now reduce it by $13 million.
So basically, they can deduct it in the first year, not second, third, fourth, and you know, straight line or however they do it. It makes a huge difference because it forces people to buy new stuff because they can deduct it straight away. So it's a fantastic thing. We haven't done it in the UK. We've been doing it in Australia. It works really, really well. So I'm really, really comfortable with that. I think excellent.
Worth £25 billion during the 2 years it is in place. This will be the biggest business tax cut in modern British history.
It really, you know, we'll see what the investment means, what you can invest in, what you can't.
creating jobs and driving our economic recovery.
Yeah.
Madam Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to duties. This is a tough time for hospitality, so I can confirm that the planned increases in duties for spirits like Scotch whisky, wine, cider and beer will all be cancelled.
Okay.
All alcohol duties frozen for the second year in a row, only the third.
That's the best mental health thing we've seen.
Right
No.
now, to keep the cost of living low, I'm not prepared to increase the cost of a tank of fuel. So the planned
Fuel
increase in
surcharge, yeah.
fuel duty is also cancelled.
Yeah. Good. It's really a budget for everyone so far, you know.
This budget
Yeah, go on,
protects the jobs and livelihoods of the British people. This budget is honest about the challenges facing our public finances and how we will begin to fix them. And this budget does one other thing. It lays the foundations of our future economy, the third part of our plan.
Rajesh, I'll come back to your question in a
better
sec.
future economy, we have to make it happen. We have to do things that have never been done before. The world is not going to
Hopefully this is the inspiration. This is the aspirational element of the budget.
So it's not enough to have some general desire to grow the economy. We need a real commitment to green growth. It's not enough to have some general desire to increase.
Just been reading Bill
productivity.
Gates' book,
We need a real
fantastic book,
commitment to get
on
every
this.
business,
Going
large,
from
small,
51
opportunity to
megatons
grow
or gigatons
and succeed.
down to zero.
It's not
Net
enough
zero.
to have
Net
a
zero.
general
Yeah.
desire to create jobs. We need a real commitment to create jobs where people are and change the economic geography.
We
of
have
this
to.
country.
Otherwise, we're screwed. Well, our kids are screwed. You know.
Without remaining a global, outward-looking nation.
Yeah.
This future economy won't be created in any one budget, but today we lay the foundations.
Good.
Madam Deputy Speaker, our future economy needs investment in green industries across the United Kingdom. So I can announce today the first ever UK infrastructure bank. Located in Leeds,
Which we
the
knew about
bank
that.
will invest across the UK in public and private projects to
Good.
finance the green industrial.
This is what we need, and this is not just the UK. All governments have to do this, and all governments have to invest in new technologies and all sorts of things. Revamping the power grid, a whole range of things like
And
that.
I know my right honourable friend, the member for Pudsey, will particularly welcome the location
awesome.
of this new institution.
Pudsey. Oh, that's good. We got property down the road from there. So, but this is good that they're, Wolverhampton has got the works and pensions, the infrastructure bank in Leeds. It's that, we're starting to move out, which is what we need.
And in November, I announced we would launch a world-leading sovereign green bond. Today, we're going further, announcing a new retail savings product to give all UK savers the chance to support green projects. As my right honourable friend, the member for North East,
we need the government to lead on this sort of stuff, the green stuff. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse. So yeah.
As the global leader for voluntary, high-quality carbon offset markets, and underpinning all of this will be an updated monetary policy remit for the Bank of England. It reaffirms their 2% target, but
so 2%.
now it will also reflect the importance of environmental sustainability.
Good. So this is what happens. So we're going to start less investing in fossil fuel and more about green, which is what we need.
And support small business. Too often, smaller firms don't have the time or resources to acquire the extra skills and training they need to be more efficient, more digital, and more productive. Thanks to Be the Business, we have made a good start at supporting these firms. Today, the Business Secretary and I are going further with a new set of UK-wide schemes, Help to Grow.
Help to Grow.
Help to Grow management will help tens of thousands of small and medium-sized businesses get world-class management training. Dozens of business schools across the UK will offer a new executive development programme with mentoring and peer learning, and government will contribute 90% of the cost.
Awesome.
A real commitment.
We need to do this. I mean, it's something they do in Singapore really, really, really well.
Second, Help to Grow digital. With the pandemic, many businesses
Have to do this.
This has been a challenge, but we want to turn it into an opportunity. We're going to help small businesses develop digital skills by giving them free expert training and a 50% discount on new productivity-enhancing software worth up to £5,000 each.
Awesome.
Both programs will commence by the autumn, and I'd urge interested businesses to register today on gov.uk/help to grow. A real commitment to help.
That's something we'll definitely support that, because we have to do this. Yeah, awesome. Good.
Madam Deputy Speaker, a future economy requires us to be at the forefront of the next scientific and technological revolution.
Have to.
Becoming a scientific superpower.
Do reading Bill Gates' book on the climate crisis, the innovation is the way we get through this. So yeah.
Show the world what this country is capable of. So I'm providing an extra £1.6 billion today to continue the rollout and improve our future preparedness.
Yep.
And I want to make the UK the best place in the world for high-growth, innovative companies.
Good.
So I'm launching 2 wide-ranging consultations today to make sure our research and development tax rates and our enterprise management incentives are internationally competitive.
Yeah, awesome.
And my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary.
We are already really the centre of Europe for high growth and high, startups and things like that. We're doing really well.
Ambitious visa reforms aimed at highly skilled migrants, including a new unsponsored points-based visa to attract the best and most promising international talent.
See, they needed this. This is, it's a world economy now. You've got to recognise that, and I think that's one of the keys. So yeah.
Radically simplified bureaucracy for high-skilled visa applications. Now, as well as support for innovation.
A lot of this, to be fair, guys, has already come out. This is not news.
Firms need access to capital.
Here we go. What's this one?
We're taking steps to give the pensions industry more flexibility to unlock billions of pounds from pension funds into innovative new ventures.
They have to do something. They're so restricted and so crappy returns that pensions just are failing.
Changing the rules to encourage more companies.
And it's not the pension fund failing, it's they're not getting a big enough return to actually provide for you in your pension,
The FCA will be consulting on his proposals very shortly.
The FCA, I'm not sure they've not got the best track record of running stuff. We'll see how it goes. But yeah.
Our future economy depends on remaining a united kingdom. Millions of families and businesses in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland have contributed to and benefited from our coronavirus.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
And central to that has been a treasury that acts for the whole United Kingdom.
Yeah.
That's not a political point, it's an undeniable truth. The majority of today's budget measures will apply directly to people in all 4 nations of the United Kingdom.
Gotcha.
And I'm taking further specific steps with 3 accelerated Scottish city and growth deals in Ayrshire, Argyll and Bute and Falkirk, 3 more in North Wales, Mid Wales and Swansea Bay, and funding for the Holyhead Hydrogen Hub, the Global Centre of Rail Excellence in Newport Talbot, the Aberdeen Energy Transition Zone, as well as the Global Underwater Hub and North Sea Transition Deal, along with the first allocations of the £400 million New Deal for Northern Ireland. And through the Barnett formula, the decisions I'm taking in this budget also increase the funding for the devolved administrations by £1.2 billion in Scotland,
So I'll just deal with this. Rajesh just asked a question, when it says 2 years super deduction for business investment, what does it actually mean? So what happens is, if I buy, say, a £100,000 machine, all right, it doesn't have to be a machine, it could be a computer system, whatever. Normally what happens is, let's say I'm allowed to depreciate that over 4 years. So 250,000, oh sorry, 25, yeah, 100,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 using straight line method. But if the government says, actually, you can deduct 50% of that, that drops my tax. So I can actually claim 50,000 in the first year which drops my tax. Yeah. So therefore, it means that in some ways, if I buy it around the same time as I pay tax, or thereabouts, it means I can effectively get it half price. Not exactly, but rather than paying the tax to the government, I use that money to buy it. So it actually stimulates, and because you're buying new stuff, a lot of times it's new for machinery and things like that, works great.
Sustained levels of public investment across the UK since the 1970s. But we can go further. I am announcing today over £1 billion for 45 new towns deals.
Wow.
From Castleford to Clay Cross, Rochdale to Rowley Regis, and Whitby to Wolverhampton. And let me pay tribute to local leaders like the brilliant mayor for the West Midlands.
So this is going to be interesting, new towns. I love this idea, but it depends what it is. The devil's in the detail with this stuff.
To help communities across the UK take ownership of pubs, theatres, shops, or local sports clubs.
So you can buy your own pub, which is interesting.
Putting more power in
but you've got to match them. I think it's 250,000. You've got to match them with 250,000.
First round of the Levelling Up Fund today, inviting applications from local areas across the United Kingdom. And I'm grateful to my right honourable friends, the Transport Secretary and the Community Secretary.
But this is good news because it does allow community groups to buy sporting fields and things like that, not just pubs.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I have one final announcement that exemplifies the future economy. A policy on a scale we've never done before. A policy to bring investment, trade, and most importantly, jobs right.
This will be interesting to see what this one is now.
To replace the industries of the past with green, innovative, fast-growing new businesses. To encourage free trade and reinforce our position
this is the
as
free
an
ports.
outward-looking trading nation open to the world. A policy we can now only pursue now that we are out of the European Union.
Yeah.
Free ports.
Yeah.
Free ports are
good.
special economic zones.
So these are awesome, and they do work.
To make it easier and cheaper.
So basically, the goods can come there, sit there. They don't pay VAT. They don't pay duties, and then they can basically leave from there to wherever in. If they then leave the free port, then they pay the duties. So it's quite good. It's a great idea and fantastic. And it's the ancillary businesses around that cause growth and all sorts of things. So
with tax breaks to encourage construction, private investment, and job creation. An unprecedented economic boost across
you know what? We could pull this off. And I think this is one of the interesting things. I think we could actually pull this off massively. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But yeah, I think as much as
Freeport location
here we go.
In England. East Midlands Airport.
Oh wow.
Felixstowe and Harwich.
Okay, yeah. Humber,
Liverpool City region.
Wow.
Plymouth, Solent, Thames, and Teesside.
Thames Gateway, and Teesside. Oh, good.
New free ports
that's great.
in 8 English regions, unlocking billions of pounds of private sector investment, generating trade and jobs up and down the country. I commend members from across the House for their campaigning, but in particular, the honourable members for Redcar, Cleethorpes and Great Grimsby, as well as inspiring local leaders like Ben.
Those free ports are really a great idea because what it does, it gives it creates a port, and especially when you're talking about when we talk about free ports, we're not talking about ship ports necessarily. As you saw, East Midlands Airport, we're talking about a transportation hub where stuff can fly in, so a plane can fly in, land, and the goods can be unloaded and they can sit there and then they can be sold off, put back onto a plane and sent, or they can be internalised. Now,
all located within a free port with a treasury just down the road and a UK infrastructure bank only an hour away.
Gotcha.
I see innovative, fast-growing businesses hiring local people into decent, well-paid green jobs. I see people.
I think we've got to get this green job, revolution happening, and the government has to do that, and not just our government, all governments. It's the biggest challenge facing us in the last 100 years. So we've got to get that sorted. But I mean, to be fair, this is bloody good. I'm not one to really, pander to the government and agree with them, but actually, I wouldn't want to be Keir Starmer right now because I think he's going to struggle to really poke holes in the approach. Yeah.
That which we are, we are. the fundamentals of our character as a people have not changed. Still determined, still generous, still fair. That's what got us through the last year. It's what will guide us through the next decade and beyond. This time last year, we set out to deliver on the promises we made to the British people. But the most important promise was implicit and in truth is made by every government, irrespective of their politics. And that is to do what must be done when the danger is imminent and when no one else can.
Yeah.
Today, we set out a plan to protect the jobs and livelihoods of the British people.
Yep.
But the promises that underpin that plan remain unchanged from those we pledged ourselves to 12 long months ago.
It's been a quick 12 months, that's for sure, you know. No.
To level up, to create a world-class education system, to keep our streets safe,
Look,
to keep our NHS
I think really, you know, he's winding it down now, but overall, from a property investor's perspective, there's nothing there that you could say, oh, terrible. In fact, for us, it's great news. Stamp duty's been extended, but not only just extended, but then tapered. So that's going to keep, you know, that will, you know, we'll have the spring bounce, you know, the weather's started to get better, things looking there, you know. So that's great news. And I think that could see growth. You know, I was saying -3% I predicted for this year. You know, given what he's done, you know, I think we may actually see a continued growth, you know. So I may be wrong, you know, I'd love to be wrong, you know, but we'll see. Yeah. So I think that might be him finished. Yep, that's him done. So I don't want to listen to the leader of opposition, to be fair. But I think, guys, that, you know, just finishing up, because we can go on forever, but to be fair, you're going to see on the news in the next few days and that sort of stuff. No, all good news. Nothing really bad. I mean, yes, corporation tax, but the great thing is by doing what he's done, saying, right, small profits stay the same, larger profits pay more, you know, 26%, and then taper it in between. We don't know what that taper is yet, but we'll work that out. Pretty good, you know. Regis just mentioned that, you know, the elephant in the room, which is, you know, Brexit. Look, my personal opinion is that we possibly, you know, are going to just eclipse that. I think the way they've done that, the plan they've put in place, yes, we had COVID, yes, we did all that. I actually think that we're going to see great things come from the UK and a real turnaround and a stimulating in business. And we're already seeing that. We're already seeing this in major cities. But by doing what they've done now, by putting some of the, you know, government departments in Wolverhampton and, you know, Leeds in the infrastructure bank and these free ports around the country, what that's going to do is stimulate. I mean, let's face it. London has done really well. Manchester's done really well. Birmingham's done really well. And a few other places have done quite well too. You know, Liverpool and Leeds and the major cities. Yeah. And maybe if you had a university, you did well. But actually, the rest of the country had a, you know, decade of austerity that was just terrible. And as a property investor, a lot of those properties did not go up in value. A lot of them went down in value because of the way they started valuing. You know, a whole range of things like that. And nothing happened. And now we've started to see those places come back. And now with this budget now, I think actually we'll start to see them continue to grow. And perhaps, maybe we won't get back that lost decade, but maybe we can make up some ground, you know, which I think is great news. So all round, pretty good. I mean, look, to be fair, you're going to get the summary over the time, but there's nothing much that is really there. There was no capital gains tax. And maybe that will come on the 23rd when he has his tax day. But he certainly hasn't announced that. So I think maybe he's leaving CGT as it is for the time being. So yeah, guys, look, if there's any questions, chuck them into the thing and I'm happy to, you know, answer any general questions you've got right now. But what else was there? Yeah, I think that's all. I think I answered the questions as we went along. Yeah, I mean, actually, Rajesh, again, mate, thanks for your questions. You know, pension plan is not even worth the money I put into it. I mean, unfortunately, this is what has happened with most pension plans. It's pretty shocking. And the worst thing is when you consider inflation, it just hasn't been keeping up. And the amazing thing is the number of investors I've got who have retired now, because, you know, we've been 20 years in the UK, that have retired. So they were approaching retirement, they're now retired, and now they're realizing that their pension linked to inflation or CPI is now actually not keeping up with the real cost of living. So what they thought was going to be this much for life, now they're realizing in 5, 10, 20 years, they're still going to be alive, still healthy, and their income is actually going to be diminishing. And that has been the big failure of pensions. And the big reason is because pension funds charge so much money, and they take that money before you make money, you know. And that's really, I think, you know, there's nothing, you know, about that. But yeah, how much do free ports generate? Look, I don't know what the figures are, but to be fair, it doesn't matter. It does matter. At this stage, it doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is because of this. What we've seen in this budget is stimulus going not just to, you know, Westminster and not just to the places where it has gone previously, but it actually dotted all around. I'm sure if you plotted those pre-ports, they're all around the country, and they are, you know, based on what he said there, where they were. You know, you've got your major cities which are already doing really well, you know, and really evolving into, you know, new tech, high tech, green, you know, all these sort of things are coming out. And so that's actually great news. And I think based on what the numbers look like and what's getting there, it's awesome. You know, it's actually genius, because people, you know, if you've got a free port here, then, you know, 20 miles, 40 miles, you know, whatever around that will also benefit from it. If you've got an airport, benefit from it. If you've got you know, all these sort of things, that actually is integrating the entire country. Whereas what's been happening is everyone's been moving out of the suburbs, yeah, into the cities, because that's where all the fundamentals are. If you can get the fundamentals closer to these places, then, you know, everyone stands to benefit. And I think, you know, the next 10 years, if they keep this up and they keep the green focus and green tech and all that sort of stuff, it's going to be bloody good news. You know, that it's pretty positive, I have to say, pretty aspirational, inspirational. So yeah, guys, that's, you know, great news. So I'm very happy actually right now. I mean, it could have gone the other way, where it's like, you know, CGT goes to 50%, you know, and blah blah blah, and you know, draconian sort of thing. I mean, you know, there was a time when taxes were 70%, you know, that sort of stuff. And in fact, to be fair, when you add all the hidden taxes on, they probably are already 70%. So, you know, you've got to consider that. But anyway, guys, I think we're going to leave it there. We've been going for actually over an hour now. But I think that's good. You know, good news for property investors. I think we can invest with that. And, you know, we've got the 5%. I love that thing. I think if you can get on the ladder using that, use it. Get on the ladder. It's the best thing that will ever happen to you. You know, if you're a business, you know, go and look at what grants, what loans are available, you know, and make that happen, you know. So I think, to be fair, things are looking pretty good. I mean, the other side of it is that we may not get the third wave, which is starting to happen in Europe, we believe, because we've vaccinated so many people, 20 million people already, you know, which is a fourth of all people. You know, that's pretty bloody damn good. And if we keep that up, and we've, you know, they've already said, Matt, Health Minister, has already said that he wants to have a bonanza March, you know, and if that happens, you know, and we get through that, we may be back onto, you know, stimulus. And make no mistake, if you look at China, they locked it down, they got rid of it, and they are back and they're growing now. Their economy grew last year, yeah? You know, New Zealand, same thing, you know, stamped it out, economy, you know, back. You know, Australia, I mean, Australia didn't really get hit that bad. Yeah, Hancock, sorry. Sorry, couldn't think right there. Yeah. So all good, all good all around. So yeah, guys. So I'll leave it there. Have a fantastic week. We'll be back to our normal programming, you know, updates next week. But yeah, the same time next week. And otherwise, you know, have a great week. And yeah, we can sort of have a little smirky smile on our face, because actually we've dodged a bullet. But then we should have dodged a bullet, because we've had it pretty tough the last few years, and there is still some regulation to come. And let's face it, there is still tenants who aren't paying. There is some, you know, landlords doing it tough, and there is evictions that can't be done, and all these sort of things. So I think it would have been wrong to target housing and landlords and that. So, you know, I'm pretty impressed. All right, guys, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you again later. Okay, bye. See ya.